What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, Episode 4, Out of the Past. So things are picking up a little bit. This episode is probably my favorite one so far, and mainly just because of the setup. I mean, it's a brilliant setup. You got Coulson has a glitch, which I had seen that his iris had changed colors, but I didn't realize that it had actually gone black and white, or, well, gray. And that actually is making everything around him look black and white and gray. So we get to experience the whole episode like that. And then the little joke at the end with the whole the inner monologue is now gone. Like, I was wondering if they were going to talk about that, because it's like, why are we hearing, like, why is Coulson doing an inner monologue right now? Like, is there going to be an explanation for that? And so when there was, it made me laugh. But no, it's kind of an interesting thing that they're doing, where we start the season with, I don't know, it's weird because they started with this idea of, can we kill Wilfred Malik to prevent Hydra forming, which would just erase all of that. So it was already kind of being played with, but of course they decide not to. And it's kind of like, okay, so I guess we're not going to do that idea, because how much more, I guess, what more of a threat could you bring that would top that? You know, you decide not to kill basically the head of Hydra, you know, the one who starts it all. You decide not to kill him. Where do you go from there? Well, this one, they do bring up kind of an interesting point where it's like, it's easy to say not to kill an evil man, but it's hard to say not to save a good man. So this whole idea, you know, Daniel Sousa, he's about to die. This is the mission that he dies on, delivering whatever this piece of tech is to Stark, and he dies after doing it. And so they're playing with this idea of, can we save him? And of course, the way it's being set up, I kind of figured that they were going to play with it a little bit. I don't know, it was one of those endings where, because I've seen so many shows, the way it was set up, I'm like, okay, so they're going to show us what we think happened, and then they're going to go back and be like, actually, this is what really happened. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. Coulson is the one who takes the bullet instead and then lays down in the water like he got shot and pretending to be Sousa. And then the doctors come in, which is Simmons and Daisy, and then they take him away. So I like that setup. The problem that I have with it all, though, is like, what's the point? You know, because if you're, I guess you're keeping him alive, which is good for him, but I mean, you're taking him out of his timeline. Now he's in a completely different time. Is he just going to be with the team now? Or are they just using him to help out? I mean, he's a smart guy. He's a good agent. And they showed it several times in this episode that I really enjoyed those moments too. You know, where he's on the train and the blonde is coming up and talking to him, and he just kind of coolly throws out the lines like, you need to work on your acting. I noticed those two guys easily. And, you know, the way he managed to lose the one underling of Malik in the hotel, like, I enjoyed all of that. That was good, but they're going up against robots, Chronicoms. What good is Sousa gonna be against them, you know? Like, not that he's not a good agent, not that he's not a good guy, but you've now taken him out of his time. Sure, you know, you kept the timeline the same, you kept history the same, so that's good. You know, he's still seen as a hero, and S.H.I.E.L.D. still uses that to fight against Hydra and all that stuff, but, I mean, in reality, what's taking him out of his time going to do? Not much. You know, he's going to be with the team now, but I don't know how much help he's going to be against a Chronicom. And it's not like you could just drop him off at another time, because then what's he going to do there? You know, he's going to know everything that's going to happen, because they're probably going to tell him some of it. So it feels like a weird decision to take him out of his time. You know, it actually brings me back to one of the episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where they went and they saw Helen of Troy, and they knew that she died in history, but they wanted to keep her alive because I can't remember who formed a connection with her, but somebody did. And so instead of, you know, letting her die, they did take her out. Still made it seem like she died, so everything stayed the same in history, but they took her to the Mascara with the Amazonian women, which makes sense, because now she gets to live there with all these other powerful women, just like she is. Of course, you know, they're slightly more powerful because they're superhuman, but she gets to live with them. She gets to be alive, but she's out of history now, and she doesn't have to she doesn't have to die. It made sense. This doesn't make as much sense to me because it feels like, what are you going to do with him now? So yeah, I'm kind of confused. It's not like he's going to know anything from the future either, so it's not like he can help there. It just seems odd. The other thing that seems a little odd, I don't know what they're going to do with it, is May. Apparently, she had that freak out moment, and it was kind of disappointing to me that it took me this long to figure it out. But once she realized that she was feeling confused whenever she first got on the plane, that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh, she's feeling what the people around her are feeling. And specifically, it relates to when they touch her. So I don't know where she got these powers or how she got these powers, why she got these powers. Like, I don't know. Why? Why are you doing this with her? Is there gonna be a purpose? Is there any reason why? Because honestly, it makes her less of a fighter now. Because she punches them and then she's gonna touch them in that moment and she's gonna feel what they're feeling, which I guess technically that could help if she is fighting. Well, she's fighting against the Chronicoms, and she showed, when she touched Coulson, she didn't get any emotion from him. So she, obviously the Chronicoms can't actually feel anything, so she's not gonna feel. Although that will help. Now that I'm thinking about it, is that why they gave her these powers? Is because they're fighting emotionless robots, so she'll be able to tell, like, if she touches somebody and she doesn't get emotion, that's when she'll be like, oh, this is a Chronicom, since they're face swapping and stuff. Like, I guess it'll help in that sense. But aside from that, like, I don't know why. She died and then came back to life. Why does that give you the ability to suddenly feel people's emotions when you touch them? That's weird. It doesn't make sense. It's nonsensical. And I don't expect the show to do nonsensical. It's just bizarre. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm still a little miffed because I feel like May's death from last season was like the perfect way for her character to go out. Like I said, she got stabbed, sent to another world, and then suddenly she comes back after fighting off everybody after getting stabbed and finishes the bad guy off. Like, that's a badass way to go. And then they decide, no, we're not going to kill her yet. Now, they did explain, like, the other world apparently has something to do with emotion. I don't know what it is. They never really explained it, but I guess something on that rubbed off on her. I don't know. I don't know. It's the one storyline that I just don't really get behind right now. And everything else is either it's good or it's okay. That one, it just still feels so weird to me. It feels like they're not really doing much with it at the moment. But again, it'll probably come into play later on down the line where all the face swapping is going on, and then she touches somebody. She's like, oh, this is a Chronicom, because they're not feeling anything. Anyways, the stuff with what's his name, Malik, in this episode, I did like the fact that they brought him back. Because it did seem like maybe they were just going to leave that story behind. They go back, Freddie Malik, they stop him getting killed there, and then that's done. And now he's back, and Deke sees him again, and he mentions, like, yeah, I helped you out, I saved your life, and it does come into play as well because one of the Chronicoms shows up at the end of the episode and is like, hey, I'm going to help you out, which is actually something that I was thinking. I can't remember when I thought it, but I had that thought where, okay, they're jumping through time, they're taking these time windows. What if the Chronicoms just decide not to take one of these times? Like, what if they decide to do that? They decided, you know what, we're not going to take this window. They'll jump through the window, and then we'll be here. And they won't be able to stop us because they've gone forward in time and we've stayed put. I don't know if that would work. But the fact that they left him behind while probably taking the ship forward in the future means that he'll be able to do whatever he wants without their interference. And I like that strategy. It's a good plan from the bad guys. And I like whenever the bad guys are shown to not be stupid. And that was something that I had thought of like it was sometime during episode 2, I think, whenever they're about to jump through the window, I had that thought of like, how do we know they're going to jump through? So the fact that they thought to do that is a good plan. And it's definitely going to make things interesting since now he's helping Wilfred Malik change things in the past. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with that as far as how it plays into the future a bit. But yeah, and also just the little bit of back and forth between Wilfred and Deke, kind of interesting, to see them reconnect after all this time. And I don't know. It's kind of a weird little bond that they're forming between the two of them. Deke does feel like, a little bit of a connection with him, I think. But then also he sees him for the evil guy that he is. So I don't know. It's a little weird. There was some sort of conversation between Deke and Yo-Yo about like the status quo and stuff in those days, and maybe we should change it. Which I don't know. It's just I'm sitting here thinking, okay, but in the present, that status quo is now changed. So if you try to change the status quo in the past, maybe that will lead to horrible things in the future where the status quo is no longer the status quo and it's even worse. Anyways, what else? What else? The back and forth between Coulson and Sousa was probably one of my favorite parts of the episode. A lot of good dialogue there, and I like Sousa as a character, so I am glad they're keeping him on the show. I just hope they have a point for it. And I think that's about it for this episode. Oh, the Enoch stuff. That was the other thing. Because I knew he was going to show up again, because obviously he's a Chronicom, so he's not going to die. And I figured he was probably going to still be working in that bar after all these years. I'm not sure if they're playing it for laughs or if we're supposed to feel genuinely sorry for him, and if this is going to play into it, because we do see he clearly feels hurt by the fact that they're not coming to get him, and he was left there. And part of it was they had to go through the window, and I'm sure there's a part of him that understands that. But the fact that they are calling him and basically just using him, I don't know if that's supposed to be funny or if it's supposed to be sad, because I kind of felt both. Like, I was laughing every time they called him, and they're like, hey, can you connect me to the... And he's like, talking to Deke at the last one, he's like, I'll connect you, and just instantly puts it down. But there were some lines that he said that made me wonder if he was truly feeling hurt by it. And of course, he's the one that has been helping them too through this, so I hope that doesn't come into play, but it might. I never know. But yeah, so that's about it for this episode. So yeah, on to episode 5. See you there in a sec. Now episode 5, A Trout in the Milk. This is what I come to expect from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, things have gotten a lot more interesting this past episode. First of all, Patrick Warburton makes anything better. So having him back in, and he's no longer just a hologram, he is his actual, like, the character is really in the show now. Like, that's brilliant. I mean, just listening to him talk it's fantastic. I mean, you can't get enough Patrick Warburton. No, but it's definitely become a lot more interesting because this whole idea of can you change the timeline? Well, now the Chronicoms have essentially changed it. They've said, you know what, screw it, we're going to change the timeline, and not only that, we're also going to mess with you guys a little bit and essentially do what we want to do. Yeah, it's very interesting now, and it's becoming more and more, I guess, apparent how far ahead the Chronicoms are of the team, because it seemed like maybe the team was just sort of keeping up with them barely, and maybe eventually they'd figure something out that would put them slightly ahead of the Chronicoms, but so far, it seems like the Chronicoms have been so far ahead of them. Like, it didn't seem like that at first. In the first few episodes, it seems like, okay, they're keeping up with them, they're doing just enough. Now it's like, no. Like, they know what they're doing. They've already figured out what to do. They managed to get foiled on the one thread to be pulled in 1931 that could have just unraveled everything. So now they're going to do it their own way, and they're going to make sure to kill off these, the people that stopped them in the first place. They're going to do that too. So this whole thing now has just been set up since, I think, basically that point where, they've helped Wilfred Malik become basically head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and kept him alive past when he was supposed to die, kept his son that was supposed to die also alive for some reason. I don't really know why. I mean, it's an interesting concept, and now they've given him the power to have Project Insight happen way ahead of schedule, which of course they managed to stop it at the end pretty easily. I don't know, I was a little put off by that, because it seemed like for a second they had figured out everything. They had figured out every move that S.H.I.E.L.D. could possibly make and shut it down at every turn, but for some reason didn't think, hey, maybe we should put something on the satellite itself to make sure it couldn't just be taken out by a missile from a ship. I mean, I know they say they gave away their position when they did that, but it's still kind of easy to think about. It's like, oh, just blow it up. Problem solved. So that was a little odd, but Yeah, I mean everything in the episode was just fantastic build. You could just feel the tensity from the very beginning. I wanted to say tension, but then also intensity, and so it just came out tensity instead. It's not the word I was looking for. Just to clarify. It was building throughout the episode, and there was that one moment where we finally see Wilfred Malik talking to Yo-Yo and Deke, and essentially saying like they've been 10 steps ahead of you this whole time. Like they saw what you were gonna do. Um, so I'm really curious to see what they're gonna do with all of this, and there's the picture that Malik had on him. I don't know if that was supposed to be Mac's parents or not, because they did talk about like they've got leverage on them, and I figured it was going to be they had some hostages that they could use against them. But I don't know, the fact that Yo-Yo looks at the picture, we never get to see it, but then Max sees his parents are holed up in a cell inside the base. I don't know. It seemed a little. I don't know if this is supposed to be the same thing or if there's more hostages that we don't know about. Maybe they have all of their parents locked up, and they're planning to threaten to kill them off, which is leverage. I don't know. But Deke does shoot Malik in this episode, which is a little bit of a growth for his character, honestly, because he hasn't been the type to just shoot somebody, and we saw that earlier on this season. But now he's kind of gotten to the point where I guess he's seen enough, and he feels like this is something he needs to do to help preserve the timeline, type of thing. I don't know. It's been an interesting journey for Deke so far, and I don't know where they're planning on taking him. But it feels like a good setup for him to kind of go a bit of a self-discovery journey, because he doesn't really know what he is yet either. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting development there with Malik getting shot. Don't know whether that was part of the plan too, whether they were willing to sacrifice him. May and Coulson end up getting captured inside the base. I don't know why they spent all that time doing all of that, setting up, blowing it up, just to be like, no, don't do that, and then they got captured. I don't know. Kind of an interesting dialogue too between Sousa and Daisy whenever she's hacking into the stuff, because you could see throughout the episode he's not really on board with all of this. So I like that little dialogue between the two of them when he sort of realized, okay, he doesn't really know what he's talking about either. So he needs to kind of lighten up and realize they're doing everything they can to help. Some of it, yeah, it's making it worse, but it could have been a lot worse if they hadn't stepped in at all. So I like that scene. I don't know what's going on with Nathaniel. He takes them and is talking to Whitehall, who is the one that experimented on Daisy's mother to figure out about the Inhumans and all that. So I don't know what they're planning on doing with that. Seems kind of an interesting and scary setup, though, because he talks about surgically operating on people with superhuman abilities. So that's disturbing. But yeah, so it feels like the team is very fractured right now, and it's one of those episodes that it just builds up this just tension, and you feel like everything's going wrong, and no matter what the team does, it just keeps getting worse. And I haven't felt this for a while. Like, it's probably season 4 or 5. Probably season 4 was one of the last ones where it felt like, God, just nothing can go right for this team. Like, I still remember in season 2, that was basically the prevailing feeling throughout most of the season, because they were just constantly being battered down by Hydra, and it felt like every step they took in the right direction to fight back against Hydra was already 3 steps ahead of them and found something else because they just had more resources. So it's been a while since it's felt like the team has been so up against it and so far behind. So I mean, it's not a good feeling, but it's also, that's what makes it a good feeling, because you don't want to feel like the team is just unbeatable. You want to feel like they can be beat, which makes it more interesting when they do win. But also, like, there's the possibility that they could lose too. So, yeah, it got a lot better this episode. The other thing to talk about, just very shortly put in there, I don't know what's going on with it, but we do see Simmons is, like, rubbing her neck a lot, and then we saw, like, at one point she rubbed and the 3 little light red dots popped up. Don't know what that's about. Enoch has a conversation with her, and he's like, "Does anybody else know?" And she's like, "I'm forgetting." I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Is she supposed to be an LMD too? And this is like she and Fitz went and basically went forward in the future and saw all of this happening, and then they created an LMD of her and sent her back in time. Is that what's going on here? Because if so, again, I'm not too happy with the show about the fact that they basically took Fitzsimmons out entirely. Like the fact that Fitz has not been involved at all this season is kind of like, what the hell? Like Fitz, even on his own, is a fantastic character. So why is he not involved at all? Like, hello, it's the last season, and you're telling me there's no Fitz so far. Um, but yeah, it was overall a better episode. There are still problems that I have, but yeah, it's getting better. The story's getting more interesting. It's getting more fun, and a lot more, I guess, concerning, which is good for this show. So, anyways, on to the last of these 3 episodes. See you there. And finally, episode 6, Adapt or Die. Whew, what a doozy. Honestly, I don't. So, there are 13 episodes for this season, which I think there were for season 6 as well. Let me check that real quick. Yeah. Um, Kind of interesting that they decided to do. I'm just getting it back to where it needs to be. Kind of interesting that they decided to do shorter seasons for the last 2, but I guess it's just what they had to work with. But yeah, so this one feels kind of like a mid-season finale, honestly, because a lot happened. First of all, Patrick Warburton, still a joy. I'm sad we're not going to have him on the show. At least I don't think we will. They might come back to him a little bit, but yeah, it seems like we're done in that time period where his character exists. So a little sad for that. But yeah, just I mean, having him on the show just escalated it. And it was so much fun. His character's fun. He's a great actor. It's just I hope we get to see him a little bit more before we finish out the show. But yeah, I mean, very interesting episode overall. A lot of different twists and turns and a lot of good moments in it. So first of all, just everything to do inside the base. I really enjoyed it. Everything with Mac and Yo-Yo going to save Mac's parents was really, it was kind of funny and then also heartbreaking, of course, the end once Mac finds out about his parents. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't think they would actually do it. I mean, I know because one of the things I was thinking about was like, okay, so it sounds like Mac is alive at this point. Like, he talked about being at this bicentennial celebration. They were talking about their kids, so clearly he's already alive at this point. So if they kill off his parents, it's not going to have any effect on him. So once I realized that, I was like, that means his parents could actually go, but I wasn't sure what to expect with it. So once they're inside of the Quinjet, and then I see his dad put his hand on May's shoulder, all I can think is like, oh, okay, yep, I know where this is going because this is the second time that somebody has just randomly touched May out of nowhere. I will say I do wish that they could incorporate it a little bit better. Like, I feel like it would have been better if, like, May was helping his mom up onto the Quinjet or something along those lines. But with his dad and with the agent that was like Stoner's basically his underhand, his right hand woman, I guess. I can't remember her name now, but essentially when they were in the interrogation room, you had that scene where she walks around and she like grabs May's shoulder. Both of them felt a little unnatural, and it felt mainly just for we need May to find out that they're chronicoms, so let's just have them randomly touch her at some point. And I feel like it just could have been incorporated better. It could have been a little bit more natural. It just both felt very much like huge focus and like out of nowhere, like, yeah, let me really touch your shoulder here. It was just a little, I don't know, it felt forced to me. Maybe I'm the only one that felt that way, um, but yeah, just the way that played out, and then the fact that Mac ends up getting stranded with Deke, and just the look on his face, you could see he's very torn up inside. And I don't remember what happened to his parents in the normal timeline. I don't think they were around, but I can't remember for sure. I feel like I don't know. I feel like his mom raised him on his own, him and his brother. But I may be confusing his story with another story. I don't know. So I guess maybe we'll talk about it a little bit next episode, and we'll find out more about what he remembers of his parents and stuff. Because it's just been a while since we've heard anything about Mac's family. But obviously that was heartbreaking. The stuff with Coulson and May was enjoyable. Seeing them together again, and May is still kind of an anomaly. She's still they're starting to use her how I figured they would, since they gave her these abilities to be able to feel people's emotions. Um, she is the Chronicon detector. So that's basically what they're using her as, and it's okay, but it still feels weird that they just sort of threw this on her for the last season. But her and Coulson being together is it's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's what I like to see. And just the fact that they're giving her some more emotion outside of touching people is good, and I hope they keep doing that. Um, Everything to do with them talking to Stoner about what's going on, and just all of that was a lot of fun. I was hoping, I didn't mention this, but I was hoping last episode, whenever they first mentioned what was going on, I was hoping he was going to be like, yes, of course, like exactly what I was thinking was happening. Just, he seemed to play that, but then you find out he didn't really believe anything Coulson was saying, and that's why May knocked him out. But this episode, like, you see, he does seem to know stuff about this, but he doesn't believe it. It's not until he's actually about to get his face taken off that's when he believes it. I kind of would have liked if he just did sort of believe, like, okay, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, especially when they hacked the computers. I thought he would have started to put the pieces together, but they did it mainly for comedy's sake, so can't really blame him for it. But yeah, and then Coulson going onto the Chronicom ship and then talking with the predictor lady Sybil. It was a really good moment. And it was a good moment for Coulson too, and just that final scene where he's like, dying's kind of my superpower, and then blows up the ship. I mean, it was a nice moment. I don't know what they're gonna do with Coulson from here on out. Like, I mean, obviously this version of Coulson is now dead, more than likely. I mean, it's hard to survive that. Um, but they could bring him back in another way. I don't know how they would, but it's possible, I guess. Um, but yeah, so that was all really enjoyable. The stuff with Daisy and Sousa. So they are forming a bit of a bond. I can't tell if it's going to be a romantic thing or not. Like, there is a little bit of chemistry there, so I could see them leaning that way with it. But right now, it's still very early on between the two of them. But yeah, being kidnapped by Nathaniel, I don't know. It felt very random. Nathaniel experiments on Daisy, apparently extracts some of her DNA, and I guess puts it inside of himself. And then that's it, And he tries to use it. It backfires. He breaks his own bones, which she had some issues with that early on as well. And then just brings down the house on top of himself, and Sousa carries Daisy out. The only scene that really was awesome out of it was Sousa is kind of like talking to Daisy, talking about this one time when he got seriously hurt, and talking about the guy that basically kept him alive by just constantly talking to him. It's like he was annoying as hell, but saved my life. That chattering just kept me awake and kept me going. And then after all of that, like just him talking to her to keep her awake, she like reaches up her hand and he opens it up and sees that she's stuck like this glass shard inside that he can now use against them. I'm like, damn, that's badass and cool. But that was about the only scene. Like, everything else was just kind of pointless. I'm like, why did they get kidnapped by Nathaniel? Why did he experiment on her? Why did any of that happen? Because it feels like it was just sort of pointless now. Like, he gets her powers and then he can't use them because he's not inhuman. And then he, I guess, dies maybe? I don't know. Like, it was very unclear about what happened. Maybe it'll come back later, but right now it just seemed very random. But then we also do learn more about what's going on with Gemma as well. And that one was more interesting to me. Like, finding out that she blocked her memories is starting to make a bit more sense, And even though I still hate the fact that they split up Fitzsimmons again, this storyline is still pretty interesting. The fact that she blocked her memories of Fitz, but now it's like malfunctioning and she's forgetting some things about how to like run the ship and all of that, but also remembering things that she shouldn't be. it is kind of an interesting story, and it's got me on the edge of my seat. It's pretty intense. But again, it's just the fact that they did this because Fitzsimmons, for some reason, needed to be split up again. It's odd to me. It's the last season. Like, give me more Fitzsimmons in the last season, please. Just give me more Fitz in the last season, please. I mean, we're 6 episodes in, I'm not seeing him. Like, that in and of itself is a crime. So I'm still a little peeved about that one, but I mean, overall, it was a good episode. Very interesting ending as well to see that now the team jumped again, which I'm kind of confused about that part, because now that the Chronicom ship has been destroyed, I thought that meant that they could just basically jump forward back to their time and that would be it. But they still seem to have no control over it, and I don't know what they're supposed to be following now, because before they were following the Chronicom ship, but now they're just jumping. But how and why and what are they following? Like, that's, I hope they have an explanation for that, because it seems very out of nowhere. And of course, they jump again right as soon as they get to wherever they landed. So don't know what's happening there. Maybe the Chronicoms still have some sort of control over what's happening. Obviously, the Chronicoms have set themselves up well to where even with the destroyed ship, they probably have enough. Ooh, excuse me. Yes, I shouldn't drink sodas before reviews. I know this, and I still do it anyways. But they obviously have enough Chronicoms out there that they can still be effective. And of course, S.H.I.E.L.D is not destroyed, even though they destroyed their way of communicating with her. That space it's like a mind space. So I'll be curious to see if they have another one of those somewhere. Because if not, then how would they be able to get in touch with her? So it feels like they got a win. They managed to, stick it to them. But it still feels like the Chronicoms probably have some sort of backup plan that they have just in case. And, S.H.I.E.L.D, she's still somebody that clearly sees a lot more than everybody else. So she could have seen this as well. She could have seen Coulson destroying himself with the ship. Although her look at the end seems like she didn't see that coming, but who knows? She could have still been like, oh, okay, we're going down that timeline? Okay, well, we still have a plan. Because it feels like she's a little overpowered in that sense. Like, she can see everything. So I don't know how you beat somebody like that. It'll be interesting to see how they do. But anyways, that's it for these 3 episodes. Still enjoying it for the most part, but yeah, still have a couple problems here and there, but all in all, still good. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.